So every now and again, Oda foreshadows something incredibly important that will be of great significance in the future of One Piece. Sometimes these details are meant to be overlooked, meant to not be noticed until after the fact, and sometimes these details are in your face, blatantly obvious. And while I've been on YouTube, pretty much the thing that I've done more than anything else is I try to keep these details in mind. One Piece is over 900 chapters, oftentimes many years pass by from the point in time in which we get a clue until that clue becomes relevant. I'm mainly just here to discuss some things, connect some things, come up with new possibilities when something has changed, or new information is revealed. So it's been some time, but I think that now is the perfect opportunity to again discuss the Traitor of Zou. Because, oh man, things have changed. Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, if you'll recall back to the Zou arc, there were several different mysteries, things introduced in that arc that I think were of significance, some of which has been tied off, a lot of which has not. But one of the most critical things from that arc was the idea of how exactly did Jack find Zou in the first place? Right, Oda made a big deal that Zou was an island that cannot be found easily. It's not a normal island which you can track via log pose. The way that it is typically found is by using a Vivre card. And if you know how Vivre cards work, essentially it links to the life force of somebody, so you need to have a Vivre card of somebody currently on Zou, i.e. a mink. But then you have the mystery of Jack. And so at the time we assumed that maybe Jack was just following Revujo to Zou. Revujo obviously having some way of locating the island. And so then maybe Jack hitched a ride. But this became very, very questionable near the end of Zou, where Jack located Zou not once, but twice. The second time he clearly was not following anybody. He knew where Zou was. And so this led Inuarashi to speculate that Jack happened to possess a Vivre card leading him to Zou. And then I think this speculation in and of itself brings up the question, how would he have obtained it? Was there a subordinate of Kaido's crew living on Zou? A traitor who sold everybody out? A question a lot of people have is how would somebody on Zou communicate with Kaido? They don't use Dendenmushi there. But in Zou, Frankie noticed that there are wild Dendenmushi present in the forest. If someone knew how to convert them into usable Dendenmushi. In addition to this, in the last chapter of One Piece, chapter 920, we got a little bit of clear picture of how Revujo ended up on Zou in the first place and where he separated from Kinemon and the rest of the samurai in Momonosuke, and Jack does not seem to be there. In fact, there was no foul play in the destruction of their ship in the first place. They were destroyed, shipwrecked because of their poor navigational skills. So I want to put this into perspective. At the time in which the samurai left Wano, they were spotted as they were leaving the country, and it is a crime, but it was not mentioned that they were recognized for who they are. Keeping in mind the ridiculousness of this, because they traveled to the future by 20 years. Everyone assumed that they were dead. But either way, it was stated that they were pursued, but by the time that they reached Zou, they didn't seem to have any enemies present. Kinemon, Kanjuro, and Momonosuke drifted to Dressrosa, while Revujo was able to land in Zou. And we can assume that shortly after Revujo arrived in Zou, so did Jack. And so yes, it is a question of how exactly Jack found the island if he was not tailing the samurai, but another question is how did he know for sure that Revujo was the one that was there? He didn't come to Zou looking for Kinemon or Momonosuke or Kanjuro, even though they left Wano with Revujo. No, he asked the minks, where is Revujo? Just as they arrived in Zou, chance itself separated them, they got shipwrecked, and somehow Jack knew exactly what occurred and who was where. What this suggests to me is that there was indeed somebody on Zou who reported to Kaido and Jack of which samurai arrived, Revujo, and which ones did not, and who they were. I think that we can presume that if there was a traitorous mink, they would have heard Raizo's entire story and been able to give that to Jack. And so then when Jack arrives in Zou, having first found the island through some mysterious means, asks specifically for Revujo, and when the minks tell him that he is not there, he does not believe them. Why? Because he knows for sure. Somebody told him. The only thing that Jack did not know is where Revujo was being kept hidden. whoever his spy was, whoever his informant was, did not have access to that particular information. But anyway guys, the point of this video is not to discuss who I think the Traitor of Zou could be. Obviously I have thoughts on the topic, I do have my suspect. But the point of this video, what's really changed from the recent chapters, isn't necessarily who the traitor could be, but what their role is moving forward. And so guys, if you recall again, back to the end of Zou and the beginning of Whole Cake Island, we had this thought. We were supposed to think that there might be a Traitor of Zou, and they would obviously play some kind of important role. We also learned at the end of Zou that Momonosuke was staying behind with Inuarashi to have further conversations with Zunisha potentially, which honestly still needs to be discussed here in Wano. Then you had Jack defeated at the hands of the giant elephant Zunisha, but being a fisherman, clearly he was not going to die in the bottom of the ocean. Somebody was going to retrieve him, he was going to return. So my thought at the time was that because there is a traitor on Zou who is leading Kaido to Zou repeatedly, that Jack will make a return to Zou in order to capture Momonosuke, who is staying behind. And so now we're fast forwarding to present chapters, and pretty obviously this idea is wrong, because you have Inuarashi and Momonosuke safely in Wano, as well as Jack. And now Zou's kind of disappeared, we don't even know what they're doing, or if they will be relevant again anytime soon. So I think the first question that we should have is that if there was a traitorous mink, right? Is that mink potentially traveling to Wano? Here's the factions that we know of, mink factions that we know of that will exist within Wano. You have the Musketeers and Inuarashi, you have the Guardians and Nekomamushi, and you have Carrot. All the other minks are staying behind at home. And so guys, as I sort of rationalized earlier, it seemed as though Jack knew that Raizo was on Zou, he knew that the samurai had split up, but he didn't seem to know where Raizo was being kept safe. The people actually protecting Raizo were the Guardians, Nekomamushi's faction. So if the Guardians were protecting Raizo and Jack didn't know where Raizo was being kept, then that suggests that Jack's informant was not among the Guardians. The only two minks that I consider to be suspicious in any way is Father Yomo, who it seems like interacts with the Musketeers but probably isn't one. If you guys recall, Yomo is the giant sheep mink. And my other suspect is Bariete, the monkey mink, who rings the bell. And I guess I should probably also throw in Carrot, because initially I thought that it was possible that Carrot could be the traitor. Now granted, a lot of things have happened past then, and at this point it'd be a really shocking reveal, but I guess the point of all this is that there's a possibility that someone who's traveling with the minks to Wano is actually a subordinate of Kaido. And so obviously we've seen Inuarashi has arrived, we would also assume that his subordinates have come with them, they are somewhere. So whatever it is that the samurai and the Straw Hats are planning, it just seems like an additional likelihood that Kaido and the Beast Pirates will come to know exactly what they plan on doing because of it. Now of course this is assuming that whoever betrayed Zou is still a subordinate of Kaido. This is something that is uncertain because we don't know exactly what their motivation was, and it's possible that they were shocked, possibly have decided to leave Kaido's crew because of what occurred to their home country. Right, I'm just gonna throw a scenario at you. This isn't necessarily anything that I can justify, but it's just a possibility, right? So you have a mink who absolutely hates humans. Let's use the example of Yomo, because Yomo is a suspect of mine. He is a sheep mink. Obviously, humans prize sheep fur in real life, so it's possible that Yomo left Zou at some point in the past, encountered humans who tried to kill him, who tried to take his fleece. And so he became very biased against them. Perhaps at some point in time he encountered Kaido and Kaido's crew, the Beast Pirates. We also see that a fishman is a high representative in their crew. You can see Jack, who would have sort of similar feelings against humans, I would imagine. And so this is how he became loyal to Kaido in the first place and biased against all humans. Again, this is all hypothetical. And so he returns to Zou, he's living peacefully until a human happens to arrive after many years. He then immediately reports this to Kaido, and Kaido already has a means to arrive in Zou because they have his Vivre card. He of course was not expecting Kaido to destroy the entire country and kill all of its people. Perhaps he thought that he would spare the residents, because they're beasts. So again here, this is hypothetically, Yomo, this could be pretty much any mink really. So this person would have betrayed the mink, sold them out, but is no longer a subordinate of Kaido. And in fact might want to do something to right this because the people who ended up saving the entire country were humans. And so the Mink Traitor will end up being revealed at some point in time in the Wano arc. It will be huge, but this person will not be revealed because they sold out the Mink Pirate Samurai Ninja Alliance again. Anyway, another thing that I think that we should keep in mind is that Momonosuke supposedly had some sort of conversation with Zunisha before he ended up arriving in Wano, yet this entire conversation has so far been off-screen, and something important might have been said. We saw just before the end of the Zou arc, Momonosuke has the ability to control Zunisha, something that has not occurred presumably in 1,000 years. So we're led to believe that Zunisha essentially has been walking around the planet for 1,000 years because that was the last order that was issued to it that has never been rescinded. However, Momonosuke could give it a new order. In fact, I would think that it would be very surprising if he had any communication with it at all. So the point of me bringing this up is that Zunisha could very well arrive in Wano. And this could possibly be another way in which the Traitor of Zou arrives to Wano if they are not part of the Guardians or the Musketeers. So here essentially I'm thinking about somebody like Bryanfavr who rings the bell. There's no reason Bryanfavr should ever leave Zou because his duty is too important to the country itself, unless the country happens to arrive in Wano. And the plan is for every single citizen of Zou to fight, because it is stated that they are all warriors. But either way guys, if the Traitor exists, whether they go to Wano initially with the Musketeers or the Guardians or they stay on Zou, I believe that it is just a huge opportunity for Kaido to know something that the allies don't expect him to. Kinemon's whole plan is predicated on staying low-key. Don't let him know that we're here until it becomes time to act. Already Luffy and Zoro are screwing that up, and potentially it doesn't even matter if they did or not in the first place because Kaido has an insider, an informant. But I thought that this was a good time to remind you guys of this hanging mystery. Because guaranteed, regardless of the truth, Oda will give us an answer and it should be significant. And recently, my initial thoughts about what could be the significance have been proven to be completely wrong. But as always, I'm curious as to what you guys think about this, whether you agree with anything that I have to say, you have your own thoughts, just share them. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, link for that will be in the description. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video. Subscribe if you haven't, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.